What does or doesn't become public domain information when you put it into ChatGPT? This is MacVoices. Today's MacVoices is supported by MacVoices After Dark. Uncensored, off-topic, and always off the wall. MacVoices After Dark is available as a benefit to our Patreon subscribers. Sign up at patreon.com/MacVoices. Welcome to MacVoices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Our MacVoices Live panel is back one more time to finish up our discussion and debate over what happens when you put information into ChatGPT. Let's go back and let the panel do the talking.
I think a clarification that putting something, making a ChatGPT prompt, it doesn't make that public domain.
Yes, it does. It does.
It means that you're sharing it with the company that runs ChatGPT. You're not sharing it with me. But it's no longer private to you, though. It's not quite the same thing as publishing it in the New York Times. I agree that it's a risky thing, and I think you're making I'm just making the clarification that public domain is a different thing than and you could say the same thing about Google. I mean, you could imagine a Google search that could disclose private information to Google.
But I'm not putting that information into Google. Okay, I wouldn't be putting.
Yes, you are.
I'm making a query. Okay,
which is the same thing you're doing with ChatGPT.
And not necessarily. If I have somebody that decides to put my entire investment portfolio into ChatGPT and try to do an analysis on it,
well, you're probably more likely to feed more information into a ChatGPT than a Google query. But Google queries can be very specific, and in some cases could be, reveal information that should be kept private.
I'm going to go back to the lawyers. We're going to make a lot of money on this one.
Well, and I think it's an interesting point, Jim, that you make about putting it into Google as a query, because Google is taking those queries and tracking them and saying, how many people have asked for, the baseball score of the final game in the World Series.
But they also know what I've asked. That somebody could subpoena them, and what did Jim Ray ask? And they know that.
Exactly. And so that's an interesting point. But to Webb's point, I think the lawyers are going to be the ones, and there's going to have to be, if it's not already established, there will be case law that what is and is not putting something into the public domain.
But I think
it's not public domain, but it's just you're sharing it. It's the same thing. People put things into Gmail or email in general and don't really think about the fact that that's not private at all.
The difference.
Well, I think the difference is that I've read a document prepared by a well-known law firm, which supports what Webb was saying is what you put in as a prompt becomes public domain. Now, whether we don't know if ChatGPT is, and again, there's a couple versions out there. There's a free version and a subscription version. Whether they incorporate queries and building and improving their knowledge base. In that sense, yes, it is becoming public domain. And I think the other thing is that it seems to have this aura of an intelligent sentience that you can interact with, where no one would try to put, like Webb said, what's my comment? Please comment on my investment portfolio, and you dump it all into Google, search box. Google's going to come back and they're going to give you a bunch of hits on whatever the on hits on all the different stock tickers that you enter, and ChatGPT will answer a question in who knows what fashion, but this is a usage risk, about one is much.
I agree that the risk is higher because people are basically want to put training information into their prompt, essentially, which they're not going to do with Google.
But
Right.
in a way, Google is being trained. It trains itself by what you query.
Well, no, because you're.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's.
Well, it doesn't change the next query.
It doesn't change the next query, but
ChatGPT, I think that is, it does.
Yeah, it can't quite be iterative. You're right. Dave's
But I think the thing
when you put data into ChatGPT, it's just like when you put it into Grammarly. You are giving that entity a license to use whatever you've given it in any way they please. And they use that information to help train the model, which means that information that you feed in might become part of an answer to someone else, maybe not in your exact words, but someone else may very well be getting data spit back to them based on the information that you've provided, which is different from Google. And also, side note, this is why I don't use Grammarly, because I don't want to feed them every article I write. And in many cases, I'm writing proprietary content for companies, and that should not be out there with a license for someone to use as they please.
Well, I would think that, just building off this, in a related direction, but I don't know if anyone, you've probably all have seen the announcement that Rogue Amoeba now has a transcription model, and it's based on a chat, an LLM, from OpenAI, but they make the point that everything you do is all limited on your Mac. So what they've done is they've inherited a model that they can use for voice to text translation, and I suspect, because of all these legal issues that Webb has raised, that going forward, we're going to see lots of companies that will get the benefit of natural language and maybe even some domain language or domain expertise, through an LLM. But it will run on on-prem, so that companies can get the benefit of all the huge hundreds of millions of dollars of money spent on training a model, and they can get the benefit of using that model and applying it into a particular domain expertise system. And again, on-prem, and again, it could be in a private cloud, but it's an infrastructure they control, so it doesn't leach out into the public domain.
Dave has been very patient, and thank you, Dave, because I want to get you in and then Brian. About what your thoughts are on this.
Well, first thing is, the key is the companies cannot control where the content goes in ChatGPT, period. The industry I'm in, the industry Chuck's in, the industry that Webb is in, we're all in the same industry. That information has to stay secure. You can't share proprietary information. You can't share that information because it's going to get out and will be leaked, and you got to keep it safe. My company blocks it, so I can't access it. But the other point was Brian brought up in our private chat about the Bing chat, chat or the GPT version they have, and that's why a lot of companies stick with Microsoft, because they can set up something that's internal. It's within the company. You can still use what ChatGPT can do, but you have control of what's being done. None of that data can escape anywhere. I work with sensitive information every day, and it's very, very much stressed that cannot get out into the public domain, no matter what it is. Whether it's in our case, whether it's on the insurance stuff, if it's engineering, if it's anything that type of information, it can't get out there, and we protect that very, very, very strongly. And in the case of this Bing, like I mentioned, that's going to give them some security. It's being looked. A lot of companies are looking very closely like that. I appreciate what Webb says, and I appreciate what you guys did. That was very smart to block that down. We block it too. It's not safe for enterprise, and it'll stay that way for a fair amount of time until we get the lawyers involved, and until we get the people involved that'll analyze this further and take a look at this. I mean, I'll spend a little bit on a different topic, with the actor strike that still is continuing going on right now. That's been going on for almost 6 months now, and what's holding it up is AI. They want to be able to have control of how their voice, their facsimile, whatever they say is protected, so they don't, so it's not stolen, and they don't get compensated for it because someone can go out and use AI and be able to emulate what they do. It's kind of along that same lines, what I see. So I think very strongly that this is important to keep it blocked. Yeah, I use it on a personal level, but I'm not going to sit and put information about my company in there and take that risk of, I could like website, it's career ending. It could be.
Brian?
Yeah, just to echo a little bit of what Dave was saying about, the data is of the utmost importance, the security of it. I'm in the education field, and obviously it has to be extremely, extremely secure, even to the point of utilizing local servers rather than uploading more stuff to the cloud whenever possible. We're looking at this Bing Chat Enterprise, the access to it, and whether or not that's secure enough for us. So that's still to be determined even for us. So just wanted to echo that.
One more thing I wanted to add, Chuck, if you don't mind. I on Jeff's point about Grammarly, I use Grammarly on a daily basis, and I'm not entering any information on it other than I've got it running on my computer, and I'm having it test check my grammar. I'm not the best way of writing. I mean, Jeff, you're a much more accomplished writer than I am. So Grammarly is a very good tool to do that. So I have a bit of trust in that. My company's using it now too. So and they obviously trust it, and many companies are looking at it on the side of information security. Is that a tool that's trustworthy? In this case, it was found that it was. So I mean, I know that was a good example, Jeff, as far as where that goes and what that does, but. There's a fine line with Grammarly, but ChatGPT, whole nother story.
Yeah, well, and it's all about those thresholds of what's the acceptable level of risk for any individual or any company. So, yeah. Oh, Chuck, did you want me to bring up what I put in the chat separately?
Well, yeah, you and Eric had both sort of brought that up together from different angles. So,
the MacWhisper thing.
Yeah.
So I oftentimes will need a transcript from a client meeting, and instead of relying on a cloud service to do the transcription for me, I just take the audio or video recording, which is being recorded locally, and then and I bought a license to MacWhisper. So I will do the transcription through MacWhisper, which is using OpenAI licensed OpenAI technology to do the whole transcription. So the entire process is being done locally. I am extremely sensitive about the thought that I could be working on something proprietary for a client and have that information get out in some form that's not appropriate. So am I paranoid with the level that I go to keep information out of LLM AI systems? Maybe, but just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you, sort of thing. But
you have NDAs that you have to satisfy. So
right, and yes, exactly. And I do not feel comfortable putting information into these cloud AI LLM information checking, content checking systems, because I cannot guarantee that all of that information is staying secret, secure, and is not being used in any other way at all. So I'm all about local.
Eric, I want to make sure you had said something similar, but from a different angle.
Apple kind of, as technologies have come out, has been putting a lot of effort into on-device processing. So if you say something and it's converted to text to speech, whatever, or some of the translations, not all of them, but as much as possible, they do on-device processing of whatever the information. It doesn't get sent off. It's one of the reasons why some of the voice response stuff hasn't been as good. It's processed on the device, and the responses you get are local. It's not going off to another computer, looking up your history of where it was you've been in the last 6 months and saying, oh, you mean you want a map to go to this spot that you went to 6 weeks ago, which might be the answer you're looking for, but it's using only what it has access to locally, so it's not as helpful, perhaps. But the data is safer, and it can be used in more spots, and it's safe potentially to use, say, in a school setting. That's kind of what I'm looking for. I suspect Apple will wrap something together and put something that's on device where you could do queries, but it's basically local to a device, and when you wipe your device, all that data goes away, and it doesn't go to somebody else first. So I'm hoping that there'll be more focused kind of packages for different subject areas, like birding or something like that, and that's kind of what I'm looking for. And kind of we're starting to get performance on devices where there's a lot of excess performance. I'm looking forward to the time when that can be used in a useful fashion.
Before we continue this, I know Mark has a hard out at 9:30 and 9:30 my time, which is whatever time that is, wherever your time is. And there are a couple more things I want to make sure we get to. So, Mark, I'll say thank you very much for being here. Where can folks connect with you if they want to continue this debate with you?
X, formerly known as Twitter, at Mark Fuccio, MarkFuccio, all lowercase, all jammed together as one word.
Great. Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate it. Stick around.
Well, guys, have another 90-minute, fun with the next 90 minutes of the other two articles.
And I love the tribute song.
Thank you, Jeff. It was fun to put it together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's that.
See you all next week.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
That may have been the perfect example of AI abusing the dangers of AI.
Right. Great. Now my underpants are in a computer.
Yes. So, Jeff, you had something you want to add, but I wanted to say one thing I wanted to say before Mark left, but he had to go. There was a private conversation going on in our private chat room about the early part of that discussion and whether that was political or not. And I want to be clear. I don't want anyone to think we were being disingenuous by saying we're not going to be political. And then in their mind, they got political. My thing was, I didn't want anybody going Republican, Democrat, pro-Biden, anti-Biden, pro-Trump, anti-Trump, pro-Democrat, pro-Republican. Those are just counterproductive. I do think it's a fair discussion to have about whether government should be or how it's going to be involved in regulating some of these things. We certainly have not shied away from commentary in the past of things like the government considering banning TikTok. So I felt like that was a fair part of the discussion. And to everyone's credit, it did not become partisan. So thank you to Mark and to everybody for that part of it. Really appreciate it. That said, Jeff, you had something you wanted to bring up. Ben couldn't be with us tonight, but he is in the YouTube chat room. And
right.
Jeff,
and for some reason, YouTube refuses to let me actually comment in the chat, even though I can see it. But Ben said, hi, Ben. Ben said, staying secret is not how LLMs work. And I just wanted to call that out because I think that's an absolutely fantastic observation.
I mean,
what does that mean?
Okay, my interpretation is that Ben is referring to tools like ChatGPT, not the LLM tools that companies are using privately, internally, like their own local installation, but tools that are designed to aggregate as much information as I can to learn from and then regurgitate that back out in other forms to other people.
And that, I mean, isn't that sort of the nature of it? That just it is training itself. You're helping train it by queries, but it's also out there scraping the web, training itself. So I will say, and I don't have a link for this, but I did hear on the Tech Meme podcast today that AI has announced that they are going to be having almost a GPT store where you will be able to buy and or train your own models.
I thought OpenAI already had that.
I don't.
I guess I'm so forward thinking. I already had their products in my mind.
Well, the way it was portrayed was almost like an app store kind of thing, like Apple has. That you would, and I don't have any details on it because it's still apparently forthcoming. But I just feel like this is a very interesting thing because I do know, and I'm not talking out of school here, I've been at conferences where different companies have said, yeah, we're developing our own internal GPT models. It's like, ooh, okay, and nobody would tell me how or what they're training them on. So are they training them at, from the web in the wild? Or are they training them from something local?
I can offer some insight on that.
I'd love to have it.
Okay, so a lot of these companies that are like we're talking enterprise level businesses, just to be clear, when they're developing their own internal platform for this, which oftentimes will involve bringing in a partner company that has the skills, the expertise, and a lot of the product that they actually need, and then it just gets adapted for their use case. What they're training with is their own data in almost all these cases. Now, in certain cases, like when you get into biopharma research, you'll have your own data, but then you actually go out and buy data modules from companies that's what they do. They just put together large biopharma databases to help train your internal model with. And so you'll have a completely segregated from the rest of the world model that you're working with, which then leads to having to make sure that your model it has the right data and is being trained properly, so you're not introducing bias and skewing all of your data and the suggestions or results that it's feeding back to you.
Webb, David, can you imagine a large language model just trained on insurance policies? Shoot me now.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, it's probably not if it's doing anything with LLM, it's going to be on the customer service side, probably, or maybe on creating draft contracts or draft documents that then the humans and the lawyers go into. What you're seeing with a lot of these companies that are building their own internal AI systems, they're using them to help with other types of data processing. So it's not actually going to spit out your quarterly earnings report and the top 3 buzz phrases for marketing. It's taking all of the data and maybe it's processing to see where there are anomalies. And now you're able to find where someone's been skimming from the company for the last 20 years without being caught, or you're finding that you have employees that are being underutilized just based on all of the data you can collect. So then you can up-train people and put them into roles that they're better suited for. So there's a lot of stuff that's going on with all of this data, or speeding up pharmaceutical testing processes. So the point is, there's a lot that companies are doing with this, where they can have a completely siloed system with trained data that's not going to be a creepy thing, and it's still not even doing the LLM thing that most people are associating with AI.
David was kind enough to find an article from TechCrunch about the App Store, the OpenAI I said it right, OpenAI chats. OpenAI App Store for AI. You try to say it fast and see what happens. And I will have that. I just threw it in the public chat, and also it'll be in the show notes. It's well worth a read. I knew that this was going to be an intense topic, and I appreciate everyone contributing because I think we all have thoughts. And David, what I was referring to is if they train it on insurance policies, man, we have the cure for insomnia right there.
Yes. Oh yeah.
You will never have another sleepless night.
Why is our server in sleep mode? Oh, we were trying to give it training data.
Let's go around the room and find out where you can find these good people when they're not here sharing all this wisdom. And I'm going to flip it around this time and start with Mr. Jim Ray. Jim, thank you, you and your coordinating cap with Webb's Quilt for being here. Where can folks connect with you?
Well, you can just go on to ChatGPT and say, "Where the heck is Jim?" Or Mastodon. Yeah, that's it. Mastodon at ProviewJim, ProvueJim at techhub.social.
Thank you, Jim. That's perfect. And if ChatGPT knows where you are, so much the better.
I'm sure it does.
I'm sure it does too. Eric Bolden, thank you so much for being here in spite of all the hostility you were feeling about your background. Where can folks connect with you?
And see, the bird is still wide awake. So all this discussion, it didn't, make him get sleepy. I can be found on Mastodon at EA Bolden at techhub.social.
Great. Thanks so much, Eric. Jeff Gamet, now you have a challenge because now Mark has engaged ChatGPT in this war of I don't know.
Don't go there. Just stop while you're ahead.
Yeah, probably so. Yeah.
So you find yourself in a hole, quit digging,
Yeah.
Chuck, I may make questionable life choices on a regular basis, but that's not one I will do.
Okay, good.
Because I know no good will come from that at all.
Where can folks connect with you? Because I know there are one or two places.
Social medias, I'm Jay Gamet, pretty much everywhere. Where I'm active right now, Mastodon and Instagram, and I'm really working on getting more active on Threads. Then for shows, well, for whatever reason, you keep letting me here on Tuesday, so thank you for that. And Dave lets me on In Touch with iOS on Thursdays, and thank you for that. And then also on Thursdays and Fridays for the British Tech Network, I'm doing the Big Show and the Mac Show. It's been a long day. I'm only hosting both the shows. You'd think I'd remember the names. And then Brian Chaffin and I do the Context Machine.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Lord Bixby, great to see you.
Let's just go with Webb, please.
Yeah.
please. I don't need that carrying around with me. So
I like it. I think it's dignified.
Anyway, you can find me at just about every place. Just go at Webb Bixby and see where it takes you. So,
Webb, thanks so much.
Thank you.
It's always a laugh.
Yeah.
David Ginsburg, I think Jeff already introduced part of you or your show, but where can folks connect to you?
Well, you can find me, as Jeff mentioned, In Touch with iOS, intouchwithios.com. My YouTube channel is youtube.com/intouchwithios. I am on this show on Tuesdays, and I'm on the Mac show on the British Tech Network on Fridays, and I'm on Mastodon at DaveG65 at mastodon.club. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And happy early birthday.
Thank you.
Last but absolutely not least, Mr. Brian Flanagan Arthurs, who I should mention that Brian chastised me in the private chat for bringing up the World Series results. So I'm sorry, Brian. Wasn't thinking.
It's okay. Yeah, about a week ago today, they were still playing baseball, but yeah, not anymore for Arizona.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Hey, just remember, Brian, they got there. That says a lot. So
not many expected that. Yes. That's true.
Yes.
Where can we find you, Brian?
A few different places on social. X, Blue Sky, Spoutable are all at Brian8944. And then Mastodon at Brian8944 at mastodon.cloud.
Great. Thanks so
much. Thank you for having me. Yeah, thank you.
Definitely want to thank everybody in the chat room. Ben, we're sorry you couldn't be here with us, hopefully next week. But there were a lot of great comments that I just didn't get to mention especially during the AI discussion and during the 27-inch iMac discussion. So thank you guys. Really, really appreciate the going back and forth. Lots of interesting thoughts. This is Mac Voices Live. We do this Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, whatever time that is, wherever you are, right here on YouTube at youtube.com/MacVoicesTV. And of course, the shows do get cut up and released, slightly edited a little bit later, but it's always more fun to have you here in person if you can be, if time zones allow. I'm Chuck Joyner. As always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with Mac Voices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices each month. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CashFly at cashfly.com.